Now this is the GBD200 and I've owned it for a few years now, but overall it's a failure in my opinion. It's got some good things about it which I'll discuss, the good and the bad, as I always do, but most importantly gives us an indication of why the new G-Shock Square with the overhyped MIP display is, well, pretty much hype. It's not worth it. I'm going to skip it and wait for the next generation, so I'm going to discuss why, as well as what I'm using as an alternative in the meantime. This is my old faithful GW-BX5600. It's the Square, and not in the negative sense like Mia Wallace says, but it is as infinitely cinematically iconic.
I want my money by 11 a.m.
Think of Speed and countless other examples. Historically significant, being one of the most faithful to the 1983 original that literally broke molds in order to be catapulted and still functional into pop culture fame and beyond, outer space even, as much as any Speedmaster. But let's be honest, its affordable price sealed the deal, and that makes it just as difficult to beat. And yes, that's Kiko Aibe wearing it himself. It's an affordable ticket into a wonderful world of exceeded 1010 capability and watch snob-proof resistance that few watch collections can deny and almost everyone respects. And it served me extremely well, for decades even, as my primary beater and workout watch. Rust and blunt force trauma aside, that the bull bars somehow didn't stop, it obviously needed to retire from active duty. Then one Christmas, unexpectedly, I was given this sexy beast as a gift. Behold, the GBD200. Now, on the mainly resin surface, it ticked many boxes, but most of all for that new negative display, which is simply outstanding. Hands down the best I've ever seen, especially in low light. But there's a catch. In fact, there's many. Fast forward back to the present day and I never wear it. In fact, I consider it a big failure. So why did I go back to my dear old faithful Mudman, along with my Breitling Aerospace and even a mystery Casio that I shall reveal later? As I awkwardly narrate these words in a New York City overpriced apartment closet, it's 2026 and we're facing the imminent release of the GW-BX5600. In fact, it might already be out by the time I spend weeks editing this video. But essentially, it's the first real Square with an MIP display. And after the GBD200, I'm actually having second thoughts about pulling the trigger on that. And maybe you should think twice too. Now, to be fair, the GBD200 does get a lot right. It's not all doom and gloom. The layered angular construction around the 3506 module feels solid, both refreshingly new and yet familiar at the same time. Kind of like the retro tech of the Alien Romulus movie. Putting opinions of the film to one side, nobody can deny they absolutely aced the set designs. That really evokes Ridley Scott's classic. The same goes for this G. It feels like a logical evolutionary continuation for the hexagonal-sided but erroneously called Square, bridging the gap between traditional 80s retro-futurist utilitarianism and a bright, ambidextrous 21st century future without losing that all-important, ineffable, iconic feel. And trust me, it's not easy to achieve this, so kudos to them there. So having said this, can you blame me for being so initially excited? Now, I'll spare you the long, illustrious history of the G-Shock as I've shared it to death on this channel before, but think of this as what Black Mesa is to the original Half-Life, or better yet, what a Porsche 922 is to the original 911. Now, shout out to the Casio man there. He highlighted a really great point that the numerals are actually thicker on the negative display. Now, there's no reason why you can't just flip from positive to negative within the same watch. It's purely a software thing. But they do that, well, why do you think? Because then they can sell more watches. It's light, sized almost perfectly, only a smidgen bigger than the traditional square, at around 1mm give or take in each measurement, while retaining all the necessary 24.9-ton truck and gravity protection of before. The navigations of the functions is now via a 5-button setup, not 4. Interestingly akin to dear old Muddy, but the similarities sadly end there. So what this means is the light is now refreshingly activated by the front top button, with the trigger B button marked in a restrained cardinal red as a convenient reminder. It's one of only 2 pops of colour on this wonderfully matte black, understated resin tactical affair. The mineral glass and the strap adapters being the only glossy exceptions, along with the same stamped, screwed-in steel caseback that we all know so well. Red and black is perhaps my favourite colour combination. I mean, what can I say? I've always rooted for the Brotherhood of Nod, so #Kane lives. However, its biggest selling point is being one of the first Gs in conjunction with the GBX100, aka the G-Glide series, with this new meraviglioso MIP display. This allowed the new screen to be purchasable in a more compact form without all the wannabe smartwatch theatrics, which I effing loathe, to put it mildly. But best of all, no recharging BS like the G-Shock Move series or the more roided up spin-off, the GW-BX5600. And speaking of which, those have been very suspiciously and quickly discontinued. I have to say the dual-time display is very conveniently legible, especially for me with family and a majority of my day-to-day business being from overseas. The strap is a particularly excellent improvement, with tighter together perforations allowing a very precise fit. There's also a nifty screensaver mode, but sadly no flying toasters just yet. And what this means is that it can automatically shut down the display to save battery power after a specified time, helping to extend the predicted 2-year battery life extensively. Some have even gone on to get 3+ years out of these bad boys as a result. You see, this is where the problems begin. To access these features, you have to have the app, and I don't want that dependency on a phone. You know, it reminds me of a Game Boy. Funnily enough, I guess a bonus hit of nostalgia. But the Game Boy was amazing because of the games as well, not just because of the screen by itself. So why did I end up going back to dear old Muddy? Well, firstly, if you haven't guessed from my recent smartwatch expose video, I despise smartwatches and phones with an increasing resentment the older I get. I really don't want intrusive notifications, nor do I wish to be tracked, my metrics or information shared, surveilled, and the dependency on app connectivity for about half the functionality is a big reason that it's so cheap and also equally loathed. Thankfully, they did include an airplane mode, which I always have switched on, somehow miraculously without getting sued by Apple. And to turn it on, you have to navigate the pain in the culo dated Windows 3.1-esque interface. That's incredibly circuitous to figure out. For a quick grab-and-go watch, the last thing you want to do is waste time navigating stupid settings. Now I have it set, I disconnect it and forget it. However, and in giant air quotes, as a dumb watch, it still utterly fails in several key areas for me. While I don't give a flying monkey about step counters, if it is your jam, it can record your workout extremely accurately, so I gotta give it some praise there. But the most basic critical function that I personally use for cardio is milliseconds during timing. Not really for accuracy, but for safety. So let me explain what I mean. When I'm jogging, biking, or doing any kind of intense workout, I need to see the milliseconds actively going, so I know it's timing and not paused at a split-second glance. Often with sweat-clouded vision, the rolling milliseconds, especially when I'm in motion, is all I need. Any longer to check the seconds and I could risk tripping up, or worse, an accident when I'm running on a busy road, for example. Facciamo le corna. Even the classic F91W has this feature. So sadly, this is the Achilles heel of pretty much all MIP displays, and this is due to them having apparently a slow refreshing rate. It also explains why there's no cool animations or fun inventive menus like you have with dot matrix Casios. Some of you may remember the Tamagotchi-like charm they had back in the day, with little animated men running or doing stuff as you interacted with the functions. So you can imagine the possibilities here. And charisma certainly goes a long way, especially with what all the haters call soulless digital watches.
Perfect.
You can really begin to see why military personnel adore the Menacious Mudman. The often misunderstood mud resistant massively undersells the extra robustness. It's like printing scratch resistant on the side of an Abrams tank. And don't get me started on the backlit dial. In daylight it screams the 90s louder than Teen Spirit. I adore the punctilious use of muted orange, jade green, rusty red and vibrant dynamite red on the buttons. And every time I push, I feel like I'm launching a missile, and I wonder who's going to get eviscerated. The exposed metal sections on the deliberate asymmetrical design is subtle, but suggests it's like a cyborg from the future, but for no reason other than to look cool. Ah, God, how I miss the 90s. And every time I strap it on, it's like a dependable ally asking me, come with me if you want to live. Something the Mudman does so well, which I absolutely love, is has multiple independently functioning stopwatches. It gives you a graphical display at the top and the bottom while you scroll through all the different features. And it's not trying to be a smartwatch, it's just trying to be the best G-Shock it can be, and pulls from the past. Its inspiration was that Running Man G-Shock. I forget the reference, but I'll do a cutaway. It's not trying to follow a trend of smartwatches or like the Move, all the rest of it, and then compromise its inherent features and the whole point of it. Leading the way. It's not trying to imitate anything other than its own lineage, and I love that. My need for double chronography is essential. During a jog, I will stop halfway and need to time something else completely separately. Then once that's completed, I return to the first stopwatch to continue timing the rest of my jog, and thus completing my training. This is another reason why my Breitling Aerospace has also been such a compelling beta watch. I love the damn thing, as much as dear old Muddy. On an original olive tropic strap from Holben's, it's flawless for workouts. And the added compass has saved my culo on several hikes and adventures beyond GPS or cell phone reception. Aside from the extremely comfortable titanium slenderness, ultra legibility, the traditional dive-style bezel, working independently from the chronograph, is another great solution for multiple separate timing. Plus, I've said it before and I'll keep saying it, that hint of Proustian Madeleine nostalgia, aka the ain't it cool factor, is absolutely priceless. I'm also a big John Woo fan, so what can I say? One massive benefit of the Aerospace is you get to upset all the overly sensitive quartz haters out there. You get to troll them, especially when they find out just how much money you've spent on this thing. You know, they get their knickers all in a twist.
You're out of your mind. Ain't it cool?
It just delivers, you know. Accuracy-wise, there's no wasted time waiting for menus and scrolling down to confirm this. All accessible by one single highly intuitive crown. It's there to do a job, and I love that. We've established that the new MIP displays are ruddy awesome. The backlight, however, still leaves a little bit to be desired. While it absolutely does the job, it's nowhere as evenly spread as a trusty old but not obsolete electroluminescence. Worst of all, you can't hold down the button for a prolonged activation. You irritatingly have to keep pressing it furiously. I really hate this. The choice of 1 or 3 seconds is all you get in the labyrinthian settings. It would be really nice if you were able to choose press for continuous use, especially when you need to read more complex metrics in low light. I mean, to quote the 90s, duh. And speaking of which, the auto backlight seems to have a mind of its own and loves to turn itself off completely for no reason at all. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Is this a glitch with the OS perhaps? Maybe it's getting too clever for its own good. So 2 other big gripes for many people out there is the lack of solar power, which personally has not bothered me as I tend to wear other watches during the day, so light exposure to charge them is not necessarily guaranteed. So I tend to prefer, when it's short notice grab and go, to be battery powered. But I would have liked multi-band 6 timekeeping, as security-wise, it only receives signals and is far safer than Bluetooth or the need to connect to some Skynet bait device. Now, these latter 2 negatives are both something that the eagerly awaited GW-BX5600 aims to appease, and according to a few trusted G-Shock reviewers on this side of the Pacific pond, many of the issues that I have with the GBD200 have not been improved upon. So with that being said, is it even worth it? Personally, for my preferences, the new GW-BX5600, I'm already tired of saying the name. I wish they'd name it something else. Anyway, for me, it's a no-go. And this 3 to 4 month delay in it being on sale compared to the UK and Japan kind of smells a little fishy to me. And to make matters worse, like I said in a previous YouTube short, I suspect the Mudman G1000 will be also discontinued very soon if it has not been already. And what we're seeing as in stock is actually just the remaining few crates of supply. It's been 20 years since its release in 2006, but as my Explorer caseback engraving says, inspired by Godfather 2, tempi cambiano. Parts will inevitably also dry up in the years to come, so the only option is to put the tinfoil hat back on and to stockpile half a dozen of the lovable little critters before anyone else. I mean, who would do such a thing? So I've gone back to this, the Casio F91W on a Phoenix strap. So for the moment, I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to pull the trigger on the new Square. I just don't think they're there yet. I think a few more generations in, they will really ace it. And maybe there's no such thing as the perfect G-Shock. I mean, that's why we have if you fall down this rabbit hole, that's why you end up having so many, right? Because they're kind of like horological crack. So this is my combo for the moment, and the Mudman and the aerospace, and I'm happy like that. But that's my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. Don't forget to like this video, especially if you want to see more free and truly independent content from an enthusiast for enthusiasts. That's what it's all about. I'll leave it there. Onwards and upwards. Thank you for watching. Ciao.